we are in a scared time where the American public and quite frankly, much of the world is in a period of wondering what's going to happen next. And as a result, there is never waste a crisis. When the world is scared, that's when you need to be the most courageous. And when everyone is being the most courageous, that's when you need to be the most scared and apprehensive, right? And last but not least, this is the most important principle to understand that the easiest time to grow is when the world is scared. The easiest time to grow your team, the easiest time to grow your leads, the easiest time to grow your revenue, the easiest time to grow your profits is when the world is scared. Why? Since the tariff threats began, the stock market, S&P 500 specifically, has seen the largest two-day drop in the history of the S&P 500 just a couple weeks ago. And in addition to that, while it has bounced back, consumer confidence is at an all-time low in the last 10 years. If we go back to consumer confidence, which basically measures how likely people are to buy stuff, how much confidence they have in making purchase decisions and in the future of the economy. If you look at the consumer confidence index and you compare it to where was it in the month during lockdown right after COVID-19 hit, and you compare that to right now is 20 points lower than the month when lockdowns happened, okay? So we are in a scared time where the American public and quite frankly much of the world is in a period of wondering what's going to happen next. And when people are wondering, their confidence goes down, they make less purchase decisions. And while tariffs may only impact specific industries, 6 industries that it will immediately impact are steel and aluminum, semiconductors and electronics, automotive and heavy machinery, construction and building materials, pharmaceuticals, retail as 6 big industries that are going to be affected. There's many other industries that are not going to be as directly affected. That's actually the majority of industries. But what is going to be affected as a result of this kind of transition period that we're in right now, as we're waiting what the final policies are going to be as we get past, this quote unquote negotiating window in terms of what the final tariffs are going to be, everybody is wondering what's going to happen next. Consumer confidence is low, and as a result, there is challenges that all businesses are going to experience, all businesses are going to have to overcome while the marketplace is scared. So in this video, what I'm not going to talk about is specific ways that you can solve the problem of tariffs regarding, if you're in retail and your manufacturing or your cost of goods sold have just doubled, right? I'm not going to talk about how to solve that. What I'm going to talk about is how do you operate with confidence and growth-mindedness in a time where the world is scared. And a mentor once told me this. He said to me, he's worth over $1 billion now, and he once told me, never waste a crisis, right? When the world is scared, that's when you need to be the most courageous, and when everyone is being the most courageous, that's when you need to be the most scared and apprehensive, right? Because you need to be greedy. This is what Warren Buffett said, when others are fearful, and you need to be fearful when others are being greedy, right? So what we're going to talk about is how do you operate with precision? How do you operate with confidence when the market is in a state of uncertainty? The big questions going through people's mind right now, whether they're real or perceived, they're problems and they're actually doubts going through people's minds. Number 1, are tariffs going to cause a recession? Number 2, are they going to cause higher prices and inflation? Number 3, are they going to create a ton of job losses and unemployment, right? These are the 3 biggest fears that business owners have as it pertains to right now regarding tariffs. So the question of whether or not this is going to affect your industry, well, it's probably a yes, even if you're not within those 6 industries that I just listed. For example, one industry that's at the bottom of the list is professional and business services. I happen to be in that industry with my company, so I am definitely less directly affected regarding, the impact of direct tariff costs. But there's still marketplace uncertainty that businesses like mine still have to deal with. So that's what I'm going to be hitting on in this video. The bottom line is people are uncertain. And when people are uncertain, they typically buy less stuff. They push off purchase decisions. They don't pay bills that they owe to people as quickly. And it creates a slowing down eventually of GDP when people are scared. And what typically sustains slowdowns in GDP are the intrinsic factors that cause a recession, which is, growth in unemployment numbers and multiple other metrics, inflationary metrics, interest rate metrics, etc. And right now, we're not hitting all of the metrics that are required to label us in a recession. So there, factually speaking, at the time of this video, right now, we are not in a recession, but there are recessionary fears. And those fears are real if they affect purchase behavior. And that's why we have to take this as something that is very serious to us. So let's talk through some principles here. What happens when business owners are uncertain? Well, there's a couple very predictable things that happen. Number one, you start spending less money on marketing. This is one of the most predictable things that happens when business owners get scared, is they try to preserve money, and one of the variable expenses that business owners spend money on is their marketing spend. So it's easy to drop down marketing spend, easier than, firing an employee as an example, because that's a human being. So it's way easier to just reduce, your marketing budget because it's more of a conflict avoidant approach. It's an immediate cost savings. But on the other side of that, there's a big opportunity arises, right? Typically, when people get scared, whether that's business owners or consumers, and they stop spending money on marketing, what happens? Cost of acquisition goes down, meaning the amount of money it takes for you to sign up a client through your marketing efforts typically goes down. And that's because when there is less demand, right, and supply stays the same, prices decline, meaning the average cost per click for an advertisement is typically going to be lower in a period of fear than it will be in a period of optimism, right? It'll be higher in a period of optimism. Therefore, it's more expensive to acquire a client when everyone is very optimistic than when they're very scared. So, number one solution that, you can immediately implement is to double down on sales and marketing for your business, right? Do the opposite of what everyone else is doing, and you will see the opposite results of the majority of people. If you want the same results as the majority of people, just do what everyone else does. If you want different, disproportionate, if I can pronounce that right, if you want different, disproportionate, huge transformative results in your business, then do what everyone else is not doing, right? Okay. So another thing that business owners do is they push off hiring decisions, right? Okay. Another thing that they do is, if they're overstaffed, they fire people, right? Or if sales slows down, they make panic-based decisions, right? And what's really hard for business owners to do is to use logic and ruthless analysis in periods of fear, right? And this is one of the hardest things about being CEO of a company is you have to basically, regardless of what people are saying or thinking or doing, you have to remain the most logical and analytical thinker on your team to be making the most rational decisions at the right time for the right reasons. And one thing that's really important is to not make emotion-based decisions, especially when emotions are running high, right? So how do you do that? Well, you need to establish hiring practices for your business, meaning, a clear metric through which you hire people, and you need to stick to that. A great way that people do this is through capacity planning, right? So if you have like a client service business, as an example, you sign up X number of clients. Each person on your team can handle X number of clients. Once you get to a certain number of clients, you need to hire someone else, right? That's called capacity planning based hiring, right? There are many other methods to have hiring methods in your business, one of which being gross profit based, right? So if you have an area of your business that is, that your goal is to operate at 60% gross profit, right? And you're at 55% gross profit in that area, then it's not time to hire someone until you get to at least 60% or greater in gross profit. That's gross profit based hiring. You have capacity based, you have gross profit based. There's many different methods. The most important thing is for you to just decide what your method is, right? So that you have a logical based methodology to make hiring decisions, right? Rather than having it be based on gut feeling, subjectivity, or someone saying that they're busy or something like that, which is not rooted in fact, logic, or most importantly, math, because that's ultimately where all decisions need to come from if you're being logical, is a numbers-based approach. So another thing that happens, that'll help you fight against the pushing off of hiring decisions, is having a methodology so you know for sure when you hire people. You want to double down on marketing as cost of acquisition decreases. You want to make sure that you have an accounts receivable process that works and that is bulletproof, right? When people don't pay their bills, that's going to affect your cash flow dramatically. So one of the most important things that you can do is have a method through which you collect money from people who owe you money. I mean, it's very important. If 20% of your business has not paid you for your services, that's 20% of money that is owed to you, and it is a very high value use of your time to have a process in place to collect that money, because that money is literally like throwing profit margin out the window. Accounts receivable is one of the fastest ways to improve your cash flow consistency, your cash conversion cycle, but also to improve your operating account balance every single month, so that your bank account is growing every single month. Here's the thing to keep in mind, is that uncertainty does not equal reality, right? Although the market may be scared, there may not be intrinsic reasons for the market to be scared, right? That means there may not be intrinsic reasons for you to be scared or to make fear-based decisions. So understand that, let's say tariffs increase the price of office furniture and computer prices by 25%. How big of an impact is that really going to have on your business? So this is why you have to understand the difference between reality and perception. Okay, so I'm going to bring you through these principles of success. I'm going to go kind of fast through these, but these principles are all things that you can double down on, which I've mentioned some of these already. They're all things you can double down on when the market contracts or people are scared. Number one is double down on client generation. Double down on client generation. This is probably the most important rule. If you ever read the book or heard of the book Good to Great by Jim Collins, he talks about the fact that market dominator companies are typically the companies that had their breakthrough moment during recessionary times. Even better, most of the companies that stood the test of time on the S&P 500, we're talking the largest market cap companies in the world, the 500 largest market cap companies in the world, the vast majority of them were founded during a recessionary time period, right? So not only are recessionary periods in time a huge opportunity from a cost of acquisition basis, I believe they're almost kind of like a testing ground for the real entrepreneurs versus the wantrepreneurs, right? I believe it's nature's natural cleansing mechanism for the pretenders who should have never gone in the business in the first place. Because if you can't handle a market tightening, then you ought to learn that sooner than later, so that you don't lie to yourself, calling yourself an entrepreneur for too long before you get disciplined by the market. So I actually think it's a great natural ebb and flow of the market, and people need to embrace this and need to understand the importance of it. Number two is fix your entire sales process and script. Understand that when people are scared, they're going to give you more objections. When people give you more objections, you need to have what are called objection handlers. You need to have closing lines in your sales script. You need to be able to turn maybes into yeses, right? People who are on the fence, who want to think about it, they say the price is too high. You need a methodology to turn maybes into yeses, right? The way you turn maybes into yeses is through objection handlers and closing lines. So you need to rehearse. You need to have written objection handlers and closing lines in your sales script. so that you or whoever is on the phones for your business, they know exactly what to say when someone says, I don't have the money or I need to think about it, right? One great objection handler I like to use is, great, hey, tell me on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being you're ready to work with us right now, 1 being you'd never work with us even if it was free, tell me, where are you at right now? Oh, I'm at a 7. Okay, great. What would take you from a 7 to a 10, right? That simple question allows the person on the other end of the phone to quantify their objection and to actually show you how uncertain they're feeling and exactly what problems you need to solve for them. So fix your sales process and script immediately, because when it gets harder to sign people up, you're going to need it. Number 3 is to prioritize net profit before you need to, okay? Oftentimes, people only focus on their profits or lack of them when there's a problem, right? Uh-oh, alert, I ran out of money. You always want to focus on your profits before they become a problem. You want profits to be a proactive focus, not a reactive focus. Ways that you do this: you always need to know the profitable and the unprofitable parts of your business. You need to know your business like the back of your hand, right? Oftentimes, most businesses, they have more than one product or service, right? Oftentimes, one product or service is operating at a great profit margin and another product or service is operating at a not so great profit margin. So knowing which parts of your business are loss leaders, which oftentimes are loss losers. I don't know why people call them loss leaders. I know why, but it's because it's like a foot in the door offer. You lead with it. But dude, that is bullcrap. You don't need if you aren't venture backed, if you don't have debt, you can't afford to lose money on any sale that you make. That's if you want to sustain your survival as a company, right? So everything needs to be a profit leader. I don't like saying the word loss leader because I think that that's mental laziness. I think you need everything to be profitable in your business. At least 60% gross profit, right? So a very simple example of gross profit is, let's say I sell eggs, right? If I sell eggs and my hard cost to buy an egg is, $2, a pack of eggs is $2, and I sell them for $10, then I made an $8 profit on that pack of eggs, right? I'm just using that as a simple example. That means I'm at 80% gross profit, okay? Your gross profit is the amount of revenue that you get from a product minus the cost of that product, right? In service-based industries, this is basically the total cost of delivering a service per unit of revenue, right? So if one employee on my team took 3 hours to deliver a consulting arrangement to someone, right? And that person's hourly rate is $100 an hour and they took 3 hours to deliver the consulting arrangement, then that is a $300 cost of goods sold. And if I charge that client $1,000 for those 3 hours, then I made a $700 profit, which is a 70% gross profit, right? If you subtract out your sales and marketing expenses and your operating expenses, that then gives you, from your gross profit, that gives you your net profit, otherwise known as your bottom line, right? Gross profit is one of the most important metrics to be aware of in your business to make sure that you're prioritizing net profit before you need to. All right, so number 4, demand team productivity and no dead weight. No dead weight, I look at it like this. Every person on your team should have something to do for every single minute of their 8-hour day, if not more, right? That is a sign that you have a team in your business that is being fully maximized. The last thing you want are some teams or individuals in your company who have nothing to do for 6 hours a day, right? This is super important. This is one of the key metrics of productivity, is that people have a lot to do, right? And if you love what you do, then you love having a lot to do, right? You wouldn't want it the other way. If you don't love what you do, then you don't want a lot to do. So if people on your team complain about having a lot to do, typically could be a sign that, either A, they're actually stretched thin, meaning, that's like they're working 16 hours a day or something crazy, Most times it's that they don't like what they're doing. So you got to weed this stuff out, and you got to make sure every member on your team is giving their all, because a company cannot afford to not have members on their team give their all. And everybody owes it to everybody to bring their all every single day. You got to be aware of whether or not there's dead weight, and you got to take action on that. Next, number 5, you've got to push client evangelism when the world gets scared. When the world gets scared, they need a sense of security. Consumers, your customers, your clients need a sense of security. Your company can be that sense of security by creating a tribe, creating a place of connection between your current clients, your past clients, maybe even future clients of yours. You create this tribe, this community, and you find ways through either giving back to the community, doing sponsored events, to really create a tribe with your customer base, both past and present, but also potential customers. And in times of fear, people gravitate towards stuff like this, and you can be that shining light. It's also really powerful for your brand to be the shining light in a time period of peril and uncertainty. Number 6, super important. Differentiate your value proposition. This is so critical. When the world gets scared, you need to differentiate your value proposition like your life depends on it. One thing I always realized was in the 2008 recession, all the businesses that were commodities went out of business, right? And the reason is because when people are scared to make purchase decisions, they won't look past the first 3 seconds of your brand, right? If they don't see anything unique about your brand, they're just going to label you as just another one of those, right? Another, whatever your industry is, just another company in X industry. As soon as they label you as that, you're out of the race, because the only businesses that people move forward with in periods of fear are the number one go-to choice in that market, right? And you want to be that number one go-to choice. So differentiate your value proposition. If you don't have a unique elevator pitch, value proposition, or way of conveying the differentiated value that you provide to customers or clients, that is one of your top priorities in differentiating yourself. So you want everybody who interacts with your business, especially if you have sales calls as a part of your business, you want every single person who calls your business, I always say, you want them to leave. Everybody who says no to you, you want everyone who says no to you to think to themselves, damn it, I just said no to the number one choice in my market, right? I can go to bed at night happy, knowing even if 70% of people I talk to on the phone or my team talked to on the phone, 70% of them didn't sign up, but those 70% all knew that they turned down the number one choice in the industry, I'm fine with that. That's what a differentiated value proposition does. Okay, number 7, put out a ton of content. When the world is scared, that's when content creators blow up, right? My 4th webinar ever, I had 3,777 attorneys register for. My 4th webinar ever. Why? Because it's when lockdowns happen. It's when the PPP loans were announced. And I was the first person to deliver content around this. So it was easy to get 3,777 attorneys to register for my 4th webinar ever because the world was so scared. And when the world is scared, people listen. So if there's one time to put out a ton of content on YouTube, Instagram, social media, Facebook, you name it, everywhere, TikTok, the time to put out the most content is when people are the most scared. When people are not scared, when people are not in fear, they consume less content because they are seeking less answers, right? So put out a ton of content. Next is get a financing partner. This is super important. Like if you can offer financing to your clients and have someone else, like a third party, take the risk, this is critical. Let's say you charge $10,000 for your services, right? Well, what if you had a third-party lender that worked with your business, and you basically have clients finance their purchase through this third-party financing vendor. You receive the 10 grand up front, and the financing vendor bears the risk on getting paid back for the 10,000, right? Plus interest. This works so well for so many companies because it eliminates that price objection when people get sticker shock, especially if you sell something that's expensive. It eliminates that sticker shock and it allows them to pay over time. And last but not least, this is the most important principle, is to understand that the easiest time to grow is when the world is scared. The easiest time to grow your team, the easiest time to grow your leads, the easiest time to grow your revenue, easiest time to grow your profits is when the world is scared. Why? Because there's less competition when the world is scared. That's it. More people are going to shrivel up. The people who aren't serious about their goals are going to be exposed, which is the majority of people. The more people who are just, pretending and being entrepreneurs are going to be exposed. So the easiest time to grow, now I didn't say the easiest time to flatline is during, times when the world is scared. I'm saying the easiest time to grow is when the world is scared. And again, this is probably the most important principle because it takes a lot of courage to grow when everyone else is scared. It takes a lot of courage to be greedy when others are fearful, as Warren Buffett says. So I hope you take these principles to the bank. Understand that, we've been through a lot of turmoil in our lives, right? Especially if you lived through COVID. Maybe you lived through the 2008 recession. Last I checked, this is my skin. Let me touch it. Oh, yeah, I'm still made of carbon. I'm still alive. I'm still breathing. So we're human beings. We're the most adaptable creatures of every species to ever exist. So pretty sure we're going to make it through whatever the hell happens. My suggestion is just that we trudge through with confidence. We trudge through with our chest out, and we choose to double down in periods of high fear, because I'm sure you won't regret that in 3 to 5 years from now. When you look back over your actions and you see that you doubled down and you did what everyone else was scared to do, guarantee you're going to be happier with those results than the results of shriveling up and downsizing, and allowing the marketplace uncertainty to affect your certainty. So I hope you got value from this. And if you have any ideas on next topics you want me to talk about on this podcast, feel free to leave a comment and let me know. Always listening for upcoming topics, and I'll see you in the next episode. Peace. If you found value in this podcast, here's one way I can help your firm right now. First, you can get our new book, Law Firm Growth Accelerator. It's everything we've learned over 10 plus years helping lawyers build thriving, profitable firms. The strategies that you'll get in this book work for any practice area and any revenue level. You can get the audiobook and ebook 100% free, or just cover the shipping and we'll send you the physical copy to you in addition to the audio and ebook. Go to smbteam.com/book to get your copy.